Hi, my name's Craig West. I'm the CEO and founder of Succession Plus. We are the largest business succession exit planning advisory firm in Australia. We've been working with business owners in the mid-market to help them maximise business value and achieve a successful exit for over 15 years. During that time, we've learned a lot, we've seen a lot, and hopefully we can share with you some of our experience, some of our knowledge, and the intellectual property we use to help business owners work through what is probably the most important focus area for an owner to work on. How do I maximize the value of my business and achieve a successful exit? Hopefully this webinar helps you understand some of those key issues you should be thinking about as an owner and helping you maximize the value of your business and achieve a successful exit. In this session, we're going to talk about planning for the unexpected, or in other words, unplanned events, crisis-proofing your business, making sure you're protected from all the various things that could go wrong. What we do know is 50%, in fact, a little bit more than 50% of all business exits in Australia are still some kind of failure. They could well be personal issues, illness, death, divorce, a partnership dispute. They could also be economic, financial, it could be even a cyber attack or a natural event. Now, hopefully, none of these things happen to you or your business, but it would be downright stupid not to plan in case they do, because they don't just affect the owner, they ripple through the business, the employees, the family, your team, your customers, your suppliers, etc. So what do we do about that? There's a couple of key things we can prepare. Firstly, legally, we have to get the right document in place early. We have to make sure the business is protected. And so stage 2 out of our 5 stages of value is protect value. And that specifically talks about unplanned events. We should have things like a shareholders agreement. That shareholders agreement should cover off unplanned events. What happens if somebody wants to exit? What happens if they can no longer work? What happens if they're hit by a bus? How does the business manage that transition? And the shareholders agreement should cover most of that. We should also have within that document a buy-sell agreement. What happens if I get hit by a bus? What is the certainty around what happens to my ownership? What happens to the value of those shares? How does my family get compensated for that value? All that should be covered in a buy-sell agreement type document, and probably even considering things like funding, often insurance, but not always. So those 2 things are the basis of the documentation. What we also should be thinking about is what about the individuals involved? If we've got 4 or 5 owners and something happens to one of them, then we need to think about how are they and their family protected in that instance as well. We should have an enduring power of attorney. We all know dementia and those sorts of things are increasing. What happens if one of our partners was in a position, for whatever reason, of not legally being able to make decisions or sign documents? We have to have that enduring power of attorney to cover that in case they can't. We also have to think about if the worst things happen, and we then need to think, what about wills? What about our estate planning? Are they up to date? Are they current? Do they cover the assets that are mentioned and covered in our shareholders agreement? Do they actually make sense when they're read together with the shareholders agreement, or do they say something completely different? We need to make sure our business interests are dealt with properly in those documents. These are not nice to have. These are absolutely necessary to protect the value of your business going forward. We also have to think about management continuity. In other words, who runs the business? Who steps up if you can't? If you're not in a position to do that, then what does our crisis plan look like? Business continuity requires leadership continuity, among other things. So who are those key people? Have we trained them to step up? Have we built leadership depth into those key people? Have we identified the key roles that need to be filled in a crisis? Have we got an up-to-date org chart, process map, critical access credentials? Who knows how to get access to your bank accounts, your online storage systems, your data, all those key things that business owners often don't think about. You have to answer the question, what if? And so do we have a clearly communicated strategy as part of our business continuity plan? Who will step up? Who's the acting CEO? If something happens to me tomorrow, who steps in to run the business? And does everybody know and expect that, or is it a complete surprise? How do we manage that? Certainly thinking about things like insurance. We have to fund the plan, not the panic. Insurance is a risk transfer tool. It transfers the risk from you, your family, the business, the other shareholders to the insurer. And it's meant to do that. That's how it works. So have we got key person insurance? Do we cover the financial impact of losing a leader? If you're not there tomorrow as the CEO and driver of your business, there's going to be a financial impact. You can have insurance, key person insurance, that will, for example, drop $500,000 into the company's bank account so they can go and recruit and upskill your replacement, either internally or externally. You should also have the buy-sell insurance, providing liquidity to transfer those shares that you owned or that your partner owned before something happened. We should also think about trauma, total and permanent disability, life insurance to protect owners and their families. And we shouldn't just be thinking about this as a one-off. We should be making sure we review these policies annually, make sure they're updated when shareholders change, when the business changes, when we acquire new assets, or maybe just when our valuation changes regularly. We have to have a funding capability. The plan is only as strong as your ability to actually fund it. We also need to have an emergency plan. What every business should have on standby includes a business continuity plan. At its simplest level, that might be, what happens if our office or factory or warehouse burns down tonight in a fire? What happens if there's another outbreak like COVID? What happens if there's some other emergency that comes up? What do our employees do? Who are the key advisors we need to talk to? Where do we get access to our key legal, financial documents? How do we get logins to bank accounts, digital tools, cloud-based systems when we can't go to the office or our laptop gets lost on a train and we've no longer got access? All of those things are quite simple. Unfortunately, something's going to happen at some point in your history of business. We have to have the ability to be prepared and have a plan. You can't prevent what's going to happen. You can prepare for it and make sure the damage or the impact is limited. Part of that now is also importantly looking at cybersecurity and digital assets. We've now got, I remember 20 years ago working in an accounting firm, we had a full-time IT person. We had a server room, which was air conditioned and secured and all that sort of stuff. That's no longer the case for most people now. It's all cloud-based, which is good and probably more secure, but it also has a lot of risk. So we have to make sure that our plan protects that infrastructure. Security, digital assets, cyber risk, all those things are important. How do we access our email, our documents, our CRM, our accounting records? How do we control our website domains? How do we make sure our social media channels are all protected? What about all our digital IP? How is that protected? Making sure that we use wherever possible the best possible security factors to make sure we know things are as strictly controlled as they can be. And even if all of that's in place, make sure we have a system and a process that everybody knows. What do we do if it happens? How do we respond to one of these events to make sure we've got this ability to grant access rights to control what happens in this particular process? We should also have external advisors. I've talked about a governance board and an advisory board in various scenarios. These are just external voices steadying the ship. They're independent of the business. They're not involved in the day-to-day. They can act quickly. They can be objective. They're not emotionally tied into you or the business, and therefore they should provide governance during high-stress periods, decision-making support, mediation, or just simply continuity, so that we know what the protocols are. We have a steady hand at the table if something happens. We know who's going to take control and what that's going to look like going forward. That alone provides a great level of comfort for owners, shareholders, employees, customers, and suppliers going forward. Making sure we know what that looks like is part of protecting the value that you've built within your business today. Thanks for joining me for that session. I hope you found it really interesting and informative and hopefully helpful for you in your business. If you want to find out more, there's a stack of resources available on our website. That includes white papers, ebooks, and other webinars like the one you've just seen. Also, feel free to reach out. I've got a team of advisors who are experts in the various areas of business succession and exit planning. They're here to help you. Feel free to reach out, touch base with one of my team. I'm looking forward to being able to help you maximize the value of your business and achieve a successful exit.